I can't read stuff with a lot of apostrophes, making
Right.
somebody sound.
Although sometimes the word order, I think, people who
Yes.
can do German well have to reorder words somewhat because the whole sentence structure in German is so different.
Yeah,
But it doesn't have to
and
be a
different
lot.
classes in England, you have to do different word order. But it's judicious, and it's about the rhythm of the sentence. It's about the music of
Right.
it. For me,
No, I think you're right. I think flavor, is so important. I edited a lot of historical mysteries, and early on, I had to make a really big decision. And it's a question that I have often addressed with writers of historical mysteries: is at what point, how do you give the flavor of the time, make the reader feel that he or she is in some other time period, but yet allow them to read the book without a lot of work? If you're doing a medieval mystery, this is the one that I was doing that comes to mind. We can't have Chaucerian English. Nobody's going to read it. Even the author won't even, get a clue. And so what is it that you do if you are setting a book in, let's say, 1270 East Anglia, that will make the reader feel legitimately in 1270 East Anglia, but enjoy the modern story? I agree with you entirely about, there has to be a rhythm and a music. But what I decided was, and I think it's worked out pretty well, is that the thing you have to really get right are the nouns. You can't have nouns that are uncontemporary, that jolt you. You can't have some, not obvious stuff like they're taking an aspirin or they're, getting on the train or something. But there's a lot of more deceptive kinds of words. There was a word in that book, cubicle, that wasn't being used at that time. So if you can kind of use modern verbs and adverbs to keep your rhythms and all those kinds of things, but you got to be really careful.
Barbara, if I thought this technically, I would get headaches every day.
Well, but you're not the editor. I am.
You're the one who's analyzing
Right.
it. I'm the one who's writing it.
That's exactly right.
That would make me crazy to think like that. I would just like.
And I'm not saying
because when you're speaking with someone, you don't think, oh, this is interesting use of nouns, Barbara. You listen to the rhythm of your voice, and I could probably write a character who talks exactly like you by listening.
That's right. But if you sent, Lori, if I were your editor and you sent, which happily you don't do,
it would never happen.
To let's say she went out to fuel her car, and you had her open the trunk, and we both know that it's actually the boot.
No, for Lori, it's the trunk. She's American.
All right, sorry. Someone else in the boot.
Well, I have to juggle that, too. I remember I had a copy editor who corrected in Antimony and the Duke, corrected all the Briticisms that the British characters were speaking, and I had to go back and change them all back. I kept saying, British character, English, English, English.
Yeah.
And so she was saying, your British character is speaking Briticisms.
But there again, that's sort of my point, is that you can't have somebody from a particular culture or time and culture, and you can't have them out of that and make the reader enjoy the book. Now, you can do it
by
instinctively and by listening, and you're writing, a modern story. But although, let's be fair and digress once again, a lot of your stories, and I think it's very interesting, have a real historical component.
Yes, they do. And
you've obviously had a lot of fun with, going back and bringing, those elements into your modern story.
Well, history is, when people say, what did you major in college? I always say, well, English Lit, because it had the lowest math requirement, because I went to a liberal arts school where you had to take a menu of things. And I said, well, anything that got me the lowest arithmetic or anything to do with numbers. But I took many more history courses than literature courses. I've always been, I've been interested in pretty much everything except maybe statistics and anything with numbers. But apart from that, history's always been a passion of mine. And my books very much reflect, they're mine. That's my world I'm writing about and that I'm involved with. And so history just comes in very natural. I see a real distinct connection between the past and the present and the future, which I think is being lost in some ways because we're so eager to be tomorrow and to forget about now and yesterday. But I'm passionately interested in the way the past shapes now and will shape the future, and that it's just natural that it would show up. Like, it was natural that my books would be set in England because I love England.
Well, but you also have a richer tapestry of things like that you can write about. There's plenty of past and history in America, but it doesn't fit as well into the sort of
it's
stories
not the
you want to
history
tell.
I'm interested in.
Exactly.
Yep. Yep.
And I can see that England would be. Have you ever engrossed in this as you are, thought about writing a novel that wasn't about Laurie and Bill and Antimony?
Everyone always say, we love these books. We hope you write them forever. When are you doing something different?
Well, I wasn't asking you that. I was asking if you felt like it was not my desire.
No, I'm so, this world is so rich, and it's so satisfying to me, and I'm so happy to be there. And I love my biggest problem is that it's so hard not to write 6 books with Kit as the main character and 6 books with Nicholas as the main character, because I get so interested in these people who sort of come and go in Laurie's life that and yet it's like when you're traveling. If you've been to a country already and you're going back, there's a part of you that wants to go back to the places you've been because you love them so much. But there's another part of you that knows the new places are going to be wonderful, and you have to make that choice. When I start a new book, there's a part of me that loves my old characters and wants to bring them in, but there's a part of me that knows new people are going to show up and they're going to be wonderful. And and then what happens, and sometimes old characters show up again, and sometimes they don't, and the new characters come in. But that's the only impulse and that's still involved in this world. It's a very rich world, and the characters, there's so much to them that is yet to be explored.
What about telling a whole story entirely from somebody else's point of view?
Well, I did that with the second book. The second book is a different voice, and my editor just hated me.
Really?
Well, she wanted a cookie-cutter copy of the first book.
Wow. So I really liked Antimony and the Duke. I thought it was an extremely interesting story.
I just
don't do any Cornwall, and there was some du Maurier hints in it, and it had, you have to have the house or the castle to make, sort of Gothic story work.
I've never read du Maurier.
Well, when I say du Maurier,
but if you see Cornwall, that's Cornwall.
It's a shorthand, I think, for Gothic, because when you think du Maurier, you're really thinking Rebecca, which is all about the house. I mean, the very fact that, for example, Mrs. De Winter is only Mrs. De Winter in the book, never has a name.
Oh.
It's Maxim De Winter, but she is Mrs. De Winter. You never know what her name is. And when, it's a novel that when the house burns down, it's over. That was the story. It was basically, and the rest of it all kind of goes around it. And a Gothic really requires that, Jane Eyre sorts of things. You can have characters and all the rest of it, but you need that anchor, so to speak.
All of my books have anchors.
They do,
yes.
but I thought Antimony and the Duke was particularly good. Martha Grimes wrote an extremely good version of Antimony and the Duke or du Maurier, and I'm going completely blank. It's the Lamorna Wink, I think. I hope I've got it right. And one of the reasons that I liked it best, to be perfectly honest, and you may not read Martha Grimes, so this won't mean anything to you, I get really tired. You haven't done this, but there are authors who, when this serendipitous new character comes in, fall so in love, sometimes unsuitably, that they let that character take over and can really kind of distort a series. I really don't like Aunt Agatha. I like Richard Jury. I like Melrose Plant. I think Melrose Plant's Aunt Agatha is just tiresome beyond belief. And I think the reason I like the Lamorna Wink so well, if that's the right title, is that Melrose went to Cornwall and he left Aunt Agatha home, and she's not in the book.
Dalgleish and Cordelia. Adam Dalgleish and Cordelia Gray. Get Cordelia out of here. I want more Adam Dalgleish. I've never read those books, but I've had the same experience with P.D. James. It's like, don't waste your time writing books about Cordelia Gray. And this is totally selfish. She should write what she wants,
And she is.
And she should. But in my own selfish little self-centered universe, more about Adam, get Cordelia. And I felt the same way when Cordelia was left somewhere. I was like, oh, good, finally, we're getting back to what I'm interested in.
Yeah, but the good news is that she isn't tromping through a Dalgleish, sort of pulling it out of round. My problem with Aunt Agatha is that she has changed the dynamic between Melrose and Jury. It isn't like she has her own book.
Right.
That's a different deal. I mean, I actually like the Cordelias, but she's more or less.
She shows up in Dalgleish books too.
She does, but not, she
doesn't distort it.
No, in fact, in the most recent ones, The Murder Room being the brand new one.
I think it's the last one.
And was she in the one where he went off to the Priory?
No.